5 years ago, my fiancé died in the line of duty, and his remains were never found. But on August 20th of this year at 8:17 p.m., Captain Jake Wilson called me personally and said, "We found him.He. He's alive and well, but he's getting married." On the way to that coastal town, Captain Jake Wilson and the police officers traveling with him kept trying to persuade me, but I refused to give up. He had pursued me for 2 years, pampered me for 5 years, and proposed to me twice. How could he forget me? I ran my fingers over the plain ring on my finger. He had already proposed to me. How could he marry someone else? After a flight and a 5-hour bus ride, I vomited until I was dizzy. After 10 hours, the 4 of us finally arrived at the town. There. Captain Jake Wilson pointed to a guest house called Sunny Day, a once obscure inn that had suddenly gained fame due to a set of photos taken by tourists. In those photos, the owner, who appeared briefly, had gained countless followers. Though only his profile was visible, it was enough to drive a crowd wild. Captain Jake Wilson glanced at me. He didn't remember anything, but he had to. I stared intently at the door, my senses numb. When Captain Jake Wilson opened the door, the seashell-shaped wind chimes rang out with a crisp sound. Before me was a large courtyard with a small path made of pebbles leading to the house. In the courtyard was a huge swing, along with a golden retriever and several cats. I stared in astonishment at the small animals. Suddenly, a person emerged from behind a curtain made of seashells. The person was tall and slender, with well-defined arm muscles beneath a black t-shirt and a clean, sharp profile. The moment I saw him, my body froze in place, my back went numb, and my head buzzed. It felt like all my bodily functions had suddenly ceased, and I could only stare intently at the man in front of me. I had seen someone who looked 80% like him, even down to the tear tattoo under his eye, but I knew instantly that he wasn't him. The man before me was worlds apart from the young him I knew. His face was more mature, with sharper features and a colder demeanor. I couldn't help but move closer and closer, until I saw the tear tattoo at the corner of his eye and the red string around his neck. Ethan. I forced back the tears and whispered his name, afraid of scaring him away. He looked up at me with a gaze that was utterly. What? Ethan. I could barely get his name out. The man looked at me coldly. "I'm sorry, miss, you must have the wrong person. But I could mistake anything in this world, except for Ethan, because he was half of my life." Captain Jake Wilson hurriedly pulled me away. "Excuse me, do you have any rooms available?" Ethan crossed his arms and scrutinized us carefully. "Yes, how many rooms?" "2. Come in." He turned his head and walked straight into the house without even glancing at me. I naively believed that as long as he saw me, he would remember me. As long as he saw me, everything would be different. But his gaze was yet sharp, tinged with a hint of disdain for being startled. When I heard he was still alive, I didn't cry. When I heard he was married, I didn't cry either. But thinking about his gaze just now, my heart felt like it was being squeezed in someone's hand, aching so badly it felt like it was about to burst. Tears fell uncontrollably. ID card. Captain Jake Wilson handed over our ID cards. When the man took the ID cards, I clearly saw that the tip of his left little finger was missing. He walked toward the counter, limping slightly on his right leg, and I covered my mouth. Captain Jake Wilson took the room key and hurriedly had someone take me out. I sat in the room for a long time before I could find my voice. How had he become like this? On the way there, I swore that when I saw him, I would slap him hard across the face. How could this faithless man forget me and marry another woman? But the moment I saw him, I suddenly couldn't bring myself to do it. I just wanted to hug him. I stayed in the room for a long time, so long that Maggie Hayes feared something might happen to me and forced me out. Everyone was having a barbecue in the backyard, and I immediately spotted Ethan grilling skewers. Captain Jake Wilson stood beside him, and the two seemed to be chatting animatedly. "Lila, are you feeling better?" I nodded. Let me introduce you. This is Lila." I slowly extended my hand, trying to keep it steady. "Lila Monroe, hello." His warm, broad palm briefly gripped mine. Hello." The brief exchange between strangers made my nose sting. I remembered when he had just proposed, holding me tightly, calling me Mrs. Sullivan with such tenderness. It was all over. Looking at the person in front of me, I had so many questions I wanted to ask, but in the end, I only managed to say, "This place is beautiful. Are you both doing well here?" He skillfully flipped the grill and casually replied, "It's good." "That's good." As we spoke, a piece of chicken wing suddenly fell off. He looked toward the door and called out, "Spud, come here." Spud was the name of the orange cat we had adopted together, and he had chosen the name. He said, "He's fat and round, so let's call him Spud." Watching the golden retriever with its tail wagging come over, my throat tightened. He called him Spud? Yeah, he's fat and round. What else would you call him? I turned away and quietly wiped away tears. Only he could come up with such a cheesy name. The skewers were ready, and everyone gathered around to eat. Looking at the beer on the table, I grabbed a can and poured it into my mouth. The bitter taste spread throughout my mouth. I looked at the person across from me. The beauty mark I often teased her about was still at the corner of her eye, and the red string was still hanging around her neck. I just didn't know if it was the one I gave her. Everything felt so unreal. Maggie Hayes handed out the skewers, placing a mushroom on his plate. He reached for it first, but no, he couldn't eat mushrooms. Everyone at the table suddenly looked at me. Just as I was at a loss, a figure suddenly ran over, jumped onto Ethan's back, and rubbed against his neck affectionately. I've missed you so much." Ethan hurriedly bent down, one hand protecting the person behind him, and got down. Though it was a reprimand, the tone I heard was nothing but indulgence. The person on his back was pulled into his arms, and he smiled as he introduced, "This is my wife, Zoe Thompson." I was still holding the mushroom necklace, staring blankly at the girl whose smile was as bright as the sun. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt like I had been hit by a hammer, unable to breathe. "Hello, I'm Zoe Thompson, E's wife. Welcome to Seabrook. Captain." Jake Wilson and the others greeted us one by one. Zoe Thompson was very talkative. She complimented everyone. She complimented me, "Lila, you're so beautiful. You're so slim, I'm so jealous. Your hair is so nice, unlike mine, which is about to go bald." She suddenly remembered something and turned to look at the man behind her. "It's definitely because you blow dry your hair wrong. Be careful, or else I'll be a bald bride at the wedding next week." Ethan ruffled her hair and sighed helplessly, "All right." Looking into her clear eyes, untouched by a single speck of dust, her gaze filled with anticipation for the wedding, she reminded me of myself back then. "Wedding?" Maggie Hayes asked. "Yes. Next Wednesday is our wedding. We hope you'll all come." I opened another can of beer, and Zoe Thompson took one too, but it was snatched away by the man before she could take a sip. Zoe Thompson pouted, "Just one sip." She said it without caring who was there, then secretly kissed him. "Come on, just one sip. Drink this." The white cup held swaying roses. When the cup was opened, the fragrance of roses wafted out. Zoe Thompson frowned. "Roses? I've told you 1,000 times, I don't like flower tea. How could you forget every time?" "I don't know. I just brewed it by habit." Hearing his words, I turned away and finished the last sip of beer. I don't like drinking water. During high school, my voice was strained from memorizing texts, and at its worst, I couldn't even speak. To get me to drink more water, Ethan came up with all sorts of ways to make me drink it: flower tea, fruit tea, oolong tea, you name it. In winter, he'd even boil apple water and snow pear soup for me. Every time I drank an extra cup of water, the once arrogant Ethan would practically worship my pink thermos. Seeing me drink beer, Zoe Thompson continued to negotiate. "Look, Lila drank a whole can. Maybe her hair is so good because she drinks beer." Sarcastic. I looked at the beer in my hand and smiled bitterly. My ex-boyfriend didn't let me drink either because I was a lightweight, and he was very strict with me. Zoe Thompson looked at me. "So you drink like this now? Won't he get angry?" I glanced at her behind and shook my head. "He doesn't care about me anymore." Realizing she might have said the wrong thing, Zoe Thompson apologetically looked at me, stopped teasing, and obediently finished the beer in Ethan's cup. I only ate the mushroom skewers, drank quite a bit of alcohol, and felt a bit dizzy, so I left early. As I was descending the stairs, I heard Zoe Thompson's hearty laughter. I turned around to see Zoe Thompson clinging to Ethan's back like a sloth, waving her arms and chattering non-stop. Ethan was occasionally choked by her. He remained good-natured, bending down to tidy the table as if he were used to it. Ethan isn't a good-natured person. I thought he was only good to me, that he would only love me for the rest of his life. Looking at Zoe Thompson, whose face was overflowing with happiness, I covered my aching heart and felt so sad I thought I was going to die. That should have been me. I should have been the one Ethan spoiled rotten. I resisted the urge to tear them apart, forcing myself back to my room. I opened my bag, dumped everything on the floor, and swallowed the pills. Only then did the flood of emotions begin to recede. When Maggie Hayes came in, I had already composed myself. I thought you'd make a scene. I looked out the window. I had planned to, but suddenly I couldn't bring myself to do it. I see you brought so many things. Are you trying to help Ethan regain his memory? That box holds our 10 years together, the first note he wrote me, his first love letter, the gifts he gave me from age 18 to 28, and our first photo together and our first wedding photo. I shook my head. I hadn't thought about it. Maggie Hayes looked at me in shock. Why? Thinking of Ethan's parents' tragic death, I closed my eyes and steadied my emotions. The pain of losing a loved one, I didn't want him to endure it twice. The next day, I woke up late. By the time I finished packing and left with my sketch pad, it was already past lunchtime. Wang Jia waved at me. Lila, I saved some food for you. Everyone was chatting at the wooden table in the courtyard. When Zoe Thompson saw me, she ran into the house and came out holding an orange envelope. She handed it to me as if it were a treasure. Lila, we don't have many relatives. We're formally inviting you to our wedding. It was a formal invitation. I took the envelope but didn't have the courage to take out the invitation card inside. Zoe Thompson kept urging me, Lila, you study art. Can you take a look at the design of this invitation card? The thin piece of paper felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Let me see. The color is so beautiful, Maggie Hayes hurriedly said. I think so too. The orange was chosen by E, and I chose purple, but the orange looks better. Lila, which color do you like? I put down my sketch pad and pointed to my orange dress. Before high school, I didn't have a particular favorite color. But one day, I wore an orange jacket and Ethan said I looked good in orange. From then on, orange became my favorite color. Lila, your taste is just like my E's. My E. Hearing those 4 words felt like a knife to my heart. There was a time when Ethan loved to call me my Lil in front of everyone. Maggie Hayes noticed my expression and quickly took the invitation from my hand. The cartoon inside looked like you, so cute. But is this in the evening? The wedding is in the evening? Zoe Thompson rubbed her face. This was E's request. Because he said. Because someone couldn't get up. Zoe Thompson stared at me blankly. Lila, how did you know? E said exactly that. But the most important thing is that he really loves evenings. Ethan once said that his favorite time of day was evening, because at evening, Sleeping Beauty turns into his girlfriend. I'm a natural sleeper. Getting up at 5:30 a.m. in high school was the worst torture imaginable for me. Those 3 years, every morning, I'd sit on Ethan's bike, close my eyes, and keep sleeping while holding on to him. During the 10-minute break after class, I could dream 3 times. Every time I woke up, his school uniform was draped over me. I remember one time I was sleeping so soundly that someone sighed beside my ear. Sigh, you sleep so much. What am I going to do with you on our wedding day? It wasn't until I turned 24 that I was woken up by his stubble. I pushed him away and tried to go back to sleep, but he pulled me into his arms, gently patted my back, and said in a hoarse voice, Lil, let's set our wedding for the evening. I hummed a few times, and he kissed my forehead, sighing contentedly. He had to let his little sleepy head sleep in, or else she'd throw a tantrum and refuse to marry him. Where would he go to complain then? But now, it's not that I won't marry him, it's that he's marrying someone else. There's truly no one to complain to. I stood up and picked up my sketch pad. At that very moment, Zoe Thompson noticed the ring on my ring finger. As she looked at me, I shook the ring, because he had said the same thing. Are you married? Lila. Yes, I've been married for 5 years. Zoe Thompson was surprised. What about your husband? Didn't he come with you? I looked at the man walking toward us and shook my head slightly. As I stepped out of the guest house, Zoe Thompson's laughter followed me. She was telling Maggie Hayes about E's proposal. I hurried my pace, as if a demon were chasing me. I found an empty spot, set up my easel, and just as I picked up the palette, my head spun. I pulled out the medicine box from my pocket, swallowed the pills, and the discomfort gradually faded. I've never been a lucky person. I have no parents, no friends, and I've never won a second chance. I thought the goddess of luck hated me, but then that day came. I won the doll I'd been eyeing for ages, drank free milk tea, smashed a golden egg at the supermarket and won a cash prize of 5,000 yuan, and even the Coke I bought for Chloe Bennett was a second chance. Chloe Bennett smiled at me. Lucky goddess, thank you for your blessings. I couldn't believe it. Someone who had been so unlucky all my life could suddenly be so fortunate. Just as our car turned the corner, it suddenly lost control and careened forward. As the wall grew closer and closer, I screamed in terror. Bang! The car crashed through the wall, surprisingly with almost no impact. Through the cracks between my fingers, I faintly saw a glimpse of orange light, which spread out along with the scent of flowers, landing on the man in the middle dressed in a suit. him.He stood in the sea of flowers, wearing a well-tailored suit. His family and friends were all dressed up, and even Spud was wearing a stylish little suit, crouching beside him. I stared in disbelief at the scene before me. When him.He walked over and opened the door, I remembered the first words he said to me, Mang, it's time. This was our secret code, time to eat, time to go home, time for a kiss, time for us to get married. He picked me up and carried me out of the car. The applause was deafening. him.He, a man who had been through so much in his life, was so nervous he could barely speak. Lil, did you have a good day? I choked up and couldn't speak, just nodding repeatedly. He smiled, looking mischievous. Lil, there's something very important I need you to do for me, and only you can do it. I looked at him. What? Be my wife. Marry me, and I'll make you this lucky every day. Plus, I'll give you 2 for the price of 1, and maybe even 3. It's strange, but so many things happen naturally between me and him.He. There's no need for build-up or assumptions. It's like I know he'll marry me, and he knows I won't marry anyone else. After he proposed, on the way back, he bought a lottery ticket and told me, if we win, the 3 million is all yours. What if we don't win? I asked him. He looked completely unfazed and said, that means I've used up all my luck to marry you. I couldn't stop laughing and said seriously, I always thought I had bad luck, but it turns out I was saving it all to meet you. Of course. You saved up 18 years of luck to meet me. I hope you'll cherish me. I leaned in and kissed him, then said very seriously, I will. As the sunset appeared, I greedily watched the fiery red sky. His words were still ringing in my ears, but the person was gone. As I walked back with my sketchboard, the lights were already on outside the guest house. As I approached, I saw a figure standing at the door. Red sparks danced in the air, and the scent of nicotine drifted over. I furrowed my brows, staring at the person before me. When he heard the sound and turned his head, I saw a fleeting look of panic in his eyes. He quickly extinguished the cigarette butt and unnaturally touched the back of his head, just like every time him.He was caught smoking. I stood there, using all my self-control to ignore him. But as we passed each other, I heard him say, Lila Monroe, I remember you. With a thud, I felt all the blood in my body rush to my head. Has my him.He returned? I stiffened and turned around, my shoulders and calves trembling uncontrollably, my heart racing. The words Ethan were on the tip of my tongue, but they stopped when I met his calm gaze. Ethan Shin had never looked at me like that before. When he looked at me, there was always a smile in his eyes, and his tenderness enveloped me completely. The sudden surge of emotions made my heart ache. I lowered my head, not wanting him to see the tears welling up in my eyes. Captain. Jake Wilson told me, but he didn't mention you. He analyzed it slowly. I felt like I knew you, but not in a colleague way. Every time I saw you, I felt a sense of guilt, even a bit of fear. You know I'm allergic to mushrooms, and the red string around your neck is the same as mine. The red string was something we got together at Sagewood Abbey. I prayed for his safety, and he prayed for my wishes to come true. The red string has 2 silver pieces with our initials on them. I forgot that him.He was a former scout. Even though he lost his memory, his innate vigilance remained. The overly enthusiastic attitude of Captain Jake Wilson and the others didn't escape his notice. It wouldn't take him more than a day or 2 to figure it out. As for my identity, he either couldn't figure it out or couldn't believe it. I slowly raised my head to meet his appraising gaze, but he looked down at my ring. Zoe Thompson said you're married, you, me. Though his hands were in his pockets, I knew they were clenched into fists, his mind in complete chaos. Yes. Here I was, about to marry the woman of my dreams, swept off my feet by happiness, and suddenly a woman who might be connected to him appears. He must be in a complete mess. My throat was so tight I couldn't speak. After several attempts, I finally managed to say, I am married, but it has nothing to do with you. Visibly, I saw him exhale in relief. That second was the most painful second of my life. I never imagined my life would come to this, that him.He would feel relieved because I had nothing to do with him. I still remember in high school when he was caught staring at me, his ears turning red and his expression flustered, and when I agreed to be his girlfriend, he was so happy it was as if he had gained the whole world. I had only seen that smile of fulfillment twice. And what about him? I looked at the man in front of me, and tears welled up in my eyes. He looked at me helplessly and apologized, I'm sorry, I bent down and raised my hand to stop him. Your parents pitied me and raised me as their daughter. I have little connection to you. I came here mainly to check on your parents. As for the red string, I pulled it hard, and it fell to the ground. Your parents asked for your safety, and they asked for mine as well. him.He looked at me without saying a word, but I had no strength left to make up any more excuses. Those few words should be enough to let him marry in peace. I didn't know how I managed to walk back to my room. I thought I had everything under control, but the moment I turned around, tears poured out like a fountain. Tears smudged my makeup, and as I saw my tired, weakened face emerge, I covered my face with both hands and cried for a long time in the corner of the bathroom. 5 years, I had dreamed that him.He would come back to me, but the moment he appeared, I had to push him away. Why did you do this to me? Why me? Due to the emotional turmoil, my stomach churned, and a metallic taste filled my throat. Lila, what's wrong? Open the door. I leaned against the wall to stand up, flushed the toilet as usual, quickly touched up my makeup smudged by tears, and walked out like a normal person. I'm fine, I just tripped. Maggie Hayes's concerned gaze made my heart ache. You don't have to hold it in front of me. I turned away. I'm fine. Maggie Hayes looked at me, hesitating, then patted me and went back to bed. As she turned away, I saw the orange invitation on the table again. An evening wedding, that should have been mine. In that moment, I felt so resentful and unwilling to give up. My emotions took over, and I rushed out the door and headed straight for the hall. I have to tell him, I'm your fiancé. The salty sea breeze blew against my face, stinging it. Zoe Thompson's laughter drifted down from the second floor. I looked up and saw him.He blowing Zoe Thompson's hair. Those careful yet loving gestures were so familiar. Zoe Thompson was comfortably nestled in his arms, while I, who had once been in his arms, was now an onlooker. I was frozen in place by that laughter. If I told him that I was his fiancé, him.He, a man who takes responsibility to the end, what would he do with me? I don't want him to pity me, I just want him.He to love me. By the time I composed myself and returned, it was already midnight, but Maggie Hayes was still awake. It was Ethan who discovered it. Though he had lost his memory, he hadn't forgotten his old profession. I knew. him.He is always smart, how could he not notice that Captain Jake Wilson was intentionally or unintentionally getting close to him? What about his parents? Did Captain Jake Wilson tell him? The air was quiet for a few seconds, and then he said it was a car accident. I nodded and didn't say anything else, at least that reason was acceptable. Ethan said he would return to Pineville with us after the wedding. After a long time, I spoke up. Once we've settled down and started a family, we should take our wife back to visit our parents. It's only right. Did you ask him? I thought of the person waiting for me at the door. I asked, but I didn't say anything. Don't worry. Lila, you know that's not what we meant. I clutched my stomach where the pain was radiating, but that's exactly what I meant. From 18 to 28, a full 10 years, him.He had become a part of my life. He was like a vining around my most important memories. Now that he was being torn away, it felt like my flesh was being ripped apart, and the pain was unbearable. On the third day here, insomnia returned. I lay awake until dawn. There were only 2 days left until their wedding. The sound of Zoe Thompson's voice filled the yard early in the morning as she prepared for the wedding. Here, I want a flower arch, red roses. How long should the red carpet be? How big should the backdrop be? If there's no photo wall, you're dead. The sounds from the courtyard kept coming, but I buried my head in the pillow. Yet Zoe Thompson's voice pierced straight into my ears. Actually, we also had a wedding. The flowers on the aisle were white jasmine from when he proposed. The bouquet was handmade by him.He, orange freesias with a subtle sweet fragrance. The guest seats were adorned with orange ribbons, the menu was finalized after 4 revisions, and even the wedding candies were chosen by the two of us together. The candy boxes were printed with our cartoon versions. He held my hand as we walked down the long flower-lined path, and his warm hand trembled uncontrollably. It was just a rehearsal, but he was so nervous. Everything was going smoothly, but the mission had to be carried out that night. He didn't get the chance to put the wedding ring on my finger or see me in the wedding dress embroidered with his name. He kept apologizing, saying he'd be back in a week, just 1 week, and he'd come back to marry me right away. I waited and waited, for 5 years, until I heard the news that he had married someone else. When I finished getting ready and stepped outside, there were people setting up the venue in the courtyard. Zoe Thompson saw me and ran over. Lila, I need a favor. I never would have guessed that the favor Zoe Thompson needed was for her wedding. Against the white backdrop, I skillfully took out my palette, selected the colors I needed, and with a few strokes, sketched the outline of a sunset. That's great, Lila. You're so talented. If we didn't need to paste photos, I'd want you to paint the whole thing. I put away my brushes. Photos? Zoe Thompson turned around. They were photos of me and He from the past 5 years. Zoe Thompson stuck each photo onto the board. She was the kind of girl who was naturally outgoing, or maybe she just wanted to share her happiness with everyone, so she kept talking about their 5 years together. This one was when he just got out of the hospital. He was so skinny, but he looked so fierce. I saved him, and he worked for me to pay off his debt. Actually, I was the one who fell for him first. I chased him for 2 years, and every time he rejected me, his reason was the same. Zoe Thompson scratched her head and said he had forgotten something very important and didn't want to think about anything else until he found it. I suddenly remembered what he said when he proposed. Lil, there's something very important I need you to do, and only you can do it. What? Marry me. I looked at the person in the photo, my voice hoarse. Did he find that very important thing? Zoe Thompson shook her head. No, he doesn't remember anything. I spent 3 years searching aimlessly with him. Later, we went through some tough times together, and he felt sorry for me being an old maid, so he settled down with me. After a long pause, I heard my own voice. It seems it wasn't important after all. Zoe Thompson immediately spoke up to refute me. No, it's important to He. He hates hospitals, but for that matter, he went to the hospital for 3 years of treatment, rain or shine. In the photo in front of me, him.He stood by the sea, the sun shining on him. He laughed wildly and freely. I seemed to see the 18-year-old him.He, a reckless and arrogant teenager, bowing only to the girl. I raised my hand and touched the photo. Why bother? Forgetting means it doesn't matter. Lila, you sign first. The orange pen felt like it weighed a ton. I held it for a long time, then decided against it. My handwriting isn't very neat. The flowers for the wedding needed to be ordered in advance. Ethan was busy preparing for his wedding with Zoe Thompson, so Zoe Thompson dragged me out with her. I really wanted to refuse, but I also wanted to hear her talk about the past 5 years. The flower shop was in town, small but filled with flowers. Mr. Thompson, 1,000 red roses, for the day after tomorrow. It seems like they know each other. The shop owner gave an okay gesture. These are just arrived small orchids, very fresh. Want to take a few? Zoe Thompson shook her head. I like flowers with a strong fragrance and vibrant colors. Those aren't my flowers. The girl in front of me is like a red rose, passionate and full of vitality, capable of healing everything, including wounded hearts. As I left the flower shop, I bought 2 small lilies of the valley. The orange petals emitted a faint, delicate fragrance. There was a fruit vendor by the roadside. Zoe Thompson knelt down to pick some durians. He loved durians the most. I should buy him some more. We lived in a northern city, where common fruits were apples and pears. I had no idea his favorite fruit was the southern durian. Besides his face, everything else seemed like it wasn't my Ethan anymore. The roar of a motorcycle echoed in the distance. The swaying motorcycle sped through the narrow alley, with 2 police officers in pursuit. The motorcycle closed in quickly, but the driver showed no intention of braking. Just as Zoe Thompson was about to stand up, the motorcycle grazed her clothes. I pushed her with all my strength, and the pain from the impact instantly spread throughout my body. I was knocked into the fruit stall, and as the fruit slid down, I fell to the ground. At that moment, all I could see was my flower being trampled under someone's feet. Lila! On the 3rd day I arrived here, I ended up in the hospital. When I woke up, it was evening, and there was a crowd of people around the bed, including Captain Jake Wilson and Ethan. I was too weak to speak. Zoe Thompson said a lot, her eyes teary. I saw someone comforting her by patting her back before she closed her eyes again. When I woke up again, it was midnight. The room was dark. The first thing I did was reach for my hair. In the darkness, someone pulled my hand away and tidied my hair. The back of my hand suddenly felt warm, and the person on the bed sniffled. When did this happen? I looked at the dark figure in front of me and sighed. Half a year ago, I guess. Why didn't you tell me? I patted her arm. It's not a bad thing. This illness is a relief for me. I'm sorry, really sorry. I didn't know you were sick, and I was still wary of you getting close to Ethan. I patted Maggie Hayes' hand. It's not your fault. My intentions were indeed impure. That's Ethan. I loved him for 10 years and almost married him. No matter what, I had to fight for myself. The sharp pain in my stomach returned. I held my breath for a moment, waiting for the pain to subside before speaking. If it weren't for this illness, I would have caused a scene. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to let it go. Maggie Hayes' soft sobs made me feel so miserable. Should I really not tell him? There's still a chance, Lila. Maggie Hayes' sudden change of heart caught me off guard. I forced myself to keep my eyes open and not let the tears fall. Even though I was so unwilling, I had to accept my fate. It's over. We all knew that Ethan's parents' death wasn't an accident, it was revenge. If he found out the truth, how much pain would he endure? And given his temperament, he wouldn't give up easily. He might even risk his own life. I didn't want him to suffer anymore. I sniffled. I couldn't just tell him I was his fiancé and then ask him to handle my funeral arrangements right away. Losing 3 loved ones at once, how would he cope? He's about to get married. Maggie Hayes beside me was crying harder and harder. I held her hand and comforted her instead. Don't cry for me. When I found out about my illness, I felt relieved. All the torment finally coming to an end. But when I heard about Ethan, I felt like my world was collapsing. Yet when I saw him with Zoe Thompson, I suddenly felt grateful for my illness. Lila. I turned away, tears sliding into the pillow. And you saw it too, he's not my Ethan. Ethan must still be waiting for me to find him. Maggie Hayes, I'll see him soon. Maggie Hayes gently hugged me, and I hugged her back. Maggie Hayes, please help me. That night, Maggie Hayes cried herself to sleep, while I slept soundly, relieved after sharing my secret. On the fourth morning, I woke up early. Maggie Hayes helped me comb my wig, and I applied makeup to my face. She asked, "Are you going to put on makeup?" Since coming here, I've been putting on makeup every day. My complexion was too poor, and I wanted to look presentable. Just a quick touch-up to look more awake. Maggie Hayes didn't say anything, but her hands were gentler. When Zoe Thompson brought breakfast, I noticed she looked off, listless and dazed. Finally, when Maggie Hayes left, she approached me. "Lila, he is your husband, right?" My hands holding the porridge trembled, and just as I was about to speak, she said, "I didn't mean to go through your box. I was just looking for some clean clothes for you." I put down the porridge and looked at the girl in front of me, who had suddenly started crying. "I took him from you. He was supposed to be yours. I've been holding him hostage for 5 years. I'm truly sorry, Lila. I'm truly sorry." The kind girl in front of me was crying uncontrollably. "Zoe Thompson, you haven't wronged me. Your lover is E, and my lover is him. You didn't take him from me. But E is him." I shook my head, wiped away her tears, and said, "No, the one who loves you is E, and the one who loves me is him. I said he isn't, so he isn't. I risked my life to save you, not to watch you call off the engagement." Zoe Thompson stayed until Maggie Hayes returned before leaving, her eyes still red. Maggie Hayes went back to rest in the afternoon and brought dinner later. I never expected him to deliver the meal in the evening. When I saw him enter, I was relieved I had applied makeup, but worried my wig might be askew. I adjusted it repeatedly while he turned away. The thermos contained easy-to-digest egg custard, milk-flavored steamed buns, and braised pork ribs. He probably didn't know what I could eat, so he made 2 portions. What surprised me most was the dessert, sweet potato and cheese. I really wanted to try the braised pork ribs he made, wondering if he had added too much soy sauce this time. But my stomach could only accommodate a little bit of the egg custard. I sat on the bed, and him stood by the window. We didn't say a word, but it didn't feel awkward at all. There was a time when we would nap until evening, and I would sit on the bay window playing the guitar while he lay in bed watching me. We didn't say a single word because we understood each other. Rarely does my stomach cooperate today, and I finished the egg custard in my bowl. Just as I reached for the sweet potato and cheese, he walked over and handed it to me. "Thank you," I said. "No need to thank me. You saved Zoe Thompson, I should be thanking you." The sweetness of the sweet potato and cheese was now bitter. I ate a few bites and finished dinner. I knew he had something to say, but in the end, he only said 4 words, "Get well soon." I knew I should say something auspicious, like happy wedding or grow old together, but I couldn't utter a single word. "Thank you. I hope you." I forced myself to continue, "Live well." The person before me was a far cry from the young man I once knew. His face was more mature than the young him, with sharper features and a colder expression. Him nodded, picked up the thermos, and left. My gaze followed his back. As the door closed, I pulled out the 4-drip, limped over to the window with my injured leg, and pressed my face against the glass. His back reappeared in my vision. I stared greedily at his back, wanting to etch it into my memory. After all, this was the last time I would see him. On the 5th day since I arrived here, it was him and Zoe Thompson's wedding. I heard my seat was in the front row, but unfortunately, I had already boarded the train. The ticket had been purchased long ago, and I was heading back to Pineville. Just as I sat down, the stomach pain began. In recent days, the frequency of the stomach pain had increased. I knew the matter I had asked Maggie Hayes to handle was about to come to a head. Since being with him, I've become very spoiled, throwing tantrums over the slightest discomfort. Him's friends all say he has a terrible temper, but since we started dating, he's become so patient and kind. Even when I act unreasonable, he still spoils me rotten. I'm completely hooked on his ways. Every time he holds me tightly, his low, husky voice whispers in my ear, and when he calls me baby, all the pain disappears in an instant. But now, I'm in so much pain that I'm sweating coldly, and my fingers are clenched so tightly around my stomach that my knuckles are turning white. In the past, he would have been so worried, just like when I cut my hand on glass in college. He would have held my head tightly against his chest and comforted me endlessly. But now, the pain in my body is 100 times worse than when the glass first pierced my skin. I lay on the table, calling out his name, "Shin, why aren't you here to comfort me?" The train continued northward. Under the effects of painkillers, I fell asleep. In my dream, I returned to high school and saw the 18-year-old Shin. His eyes were filled with only me, the Shin who loved only me. If there is a next life, I hope that the first person I meet in my youth is still Shin.